Welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on activity on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging. For the latest in our Construction Leader series, I'm delighted to be joined at 1GQ by Philip Matthews, Managing Director of Turner Townsend in Ireland. Philip, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for you to join us in our new office.
Well, again, 1GQ, this is a very impressive address. It's my first time in the building, and what I wasn't expecting walking into this building in its new form was to stand across and we're looking at built environment history out the window with Custom House. Tell us a little bit about the journey to here.
I think we've met before in our previous office in Ashford House, and if you had time in our kitchen, you would have seen that we had an image of that building. I think it's probably one of my favourite buildings, historical or cultural buildings. So we've taken that from image to actual reality, and you know, for most of our staff who sit on the floor, that's reality. That's their view out of their desks or from their desk each day. So no, it has been a journey. I joined T&T probably 9 years ago, come Christmas, December 2015. I was employee 34. So we're in excess of 100 people now. So our move to 1GQ has been necessitated by the growth that we've had. We've had tremendous growth over the last number of years across all our segments, across real estate, infrastructure, and energy and natural resources. So, you know, as you look at our floor plate there, you know, it's a hive of activity. But that move, it was necessitated. We needed to move. The growth we've had, it's just we were too constrained where we were. It was a fantastic office. It was fit for its time. But now, you know, we've fabulous facilities out there. You know, if I look across the teams we have, the growth, the big projects that we're involved in, you know, we need that facility. That's 1GQ. It's a fantastic location. Again, aside from the views, it's central in Dublin. You know, as we continue hiring more staff, that's one of the key pieces for us to be central for people. You know, we look at our net zero credentials. You know, the building here is LEED Platinum, so that all leads into where we were looking to go as a business as we were looking for a new office. I
think that's a really tangible journey, not just of transformation and growth, but I actually love the manifestation side of it as well. That you go from an aspirational picture of Custom House to looking across at Custom House every time you walk into your office. So I think that's very powerful. The office is one thing. It really is the home of the team, but it is only the home of the team. The team is the core part. The journey that Turner Townsend in Ireland has been on has been nothing short of transformational. The last time we spoke, I know you were talking about ambitions to increase the size of the team. At that stage, over the last 3 years, my understanding is the growth of the team has trebled.
Yeah, incidentally, we like to do everything to keep ourselves busy. We have our quality audit, our environmental audit on today and tomorrow. I was only just talking to the auditor this morning. The last time she was with us last year, we were 260. So 420 people now. So I think that goes to sort of the scale of the ambition that we've had. The growth, and you know, we've an announcement coming now this week. We have a big event on this week with a special guest, Minister Chambers. Jack Chambers is going to be joining us, so we'll have an announcement at that event. But you know, ambition, you know, it's one thing saying that we want to grow each year, but it's actually realising that and getting the people, building the teams, maintaining the culture we have out there with the fantastic people that we have out there. That's been great for us.
But you're making it sound too simple, and I know people listening in here will know that it's definitely not simple. So actually, let's break down some of that. For one thing, I was almost disappointed to know that I wasn't going to be the special guest coming through the doors this week. You do indeed have a very special guest coming in to officially launch the office.
Yeah.
Our finance minister.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, it's a huge sign of confidence, not just in the team, but actually across the sector. It's a huge sign of confidence. It's also perhaps quite telling, days before the budget, that the finance minister would choose to come to Turner Townsend and make such a big announcement. And we know the announcement is going to be about further growth of the team. We definitely want to break down as to how you're accessing people, because employer branding and access to talent is a huge thing. So I definitely want to get into that with you. But let's first talk about what's securing the pipeline of work, what's creating the demand for this growing team. So you mentioned the different teams and departments you have across. So talk to us a little bit about the core work that you're involved in.
Okay, maybe before I answer that, maybe just to answer the first part, the significance of the Minister joining us this week is not lost on us. We have come a long way over the last number of years. Our growth has been tremendous. It also signifies the areas that we are working in. And maybe just going back to your question, we're working across some of the biggest, most complex projects in Ireland. If you look at the Metrolink with TII, we're working with EirGrid on the upgrade of the networks across Ireland. We're involved, I'm going to name check some projects.
Please do.
Ireland-France interconnector. We're working with Ishka Airing across all of the network upgrades, their programme across Ireland. We're looking at onshore, offshore winds with some clients. So that's just purely on the infrastructure. I know I'm not capturing everything with those, but like the scale of those projects, they're phenomenal.
Well, let's because I'm always conscious that we have a predominantly industry audience. I know the question they'll want to know is how does a company grow to this kind of scale and to be involved in projects of that stature?
The background for us, we're probably leveraging our global business. You know, we have delivered globally big major projects of this scale across the UK, across Europe and Australia, the States, and it's us being able to bring or leverage that experience. Our clients are calling for more and more experienced people that have the ability, have the skill set and experience to manage major complex projects. So we have that and we've been able to leverage that in conjunction with the local team here. We've grown, brought in SMEs, brought in specialists. They're all based here in Ireland with that reach back across our global network to bring that major project experience to the projects that the clients actually want us to deliver on. I think we're unique in terms of an Irish company with the types of clients, the projects that we have and the experience that we're able to bring for these clients.
Well, talk to me a little bit about maybe the skills that are required to deliver such complex major projects. The reality is in Ireland, when it comes to delivering major projects, there is huge criticism. I don't have the knowledge to know, is that criticism justified? Is it not? Where do the issues lie? So in terms of Ireland's ability to take on and to deliver huge projects, because the ambition seems to be there, the resourcing seems to be there. So what part of the equation are we missing when it comes to delivering major projects?
I think we need to look back. There's a huge deficit of investment because of the last recession, and there's a huge amount of catch-up that has to happen in Ireland. I wouldn't say that there isn't the capability there. A lot of it, I think, has been brought into the country. As I said a few minutes ago, you know, we haven't got the history here of delivering big major projects. You know, we've got the road networks. We really haven't invested in our rail, our water, our power in a huge amount of time, or you know, as long as I can remember. So that experience we have, that capability we have within the business, we're bringing that here. I'm not going to sit here and criticise other projects that might have gone wrong. You know, there needs to be lessons learned, obviously, in some of those projects. But you know, in terms of the project setup, it's clearly what we're doing with some of these big clients of ours is looking at this procurement strategy. That's some of the biggest things that we need to do, the most important things we do at the project conception. Get that right. If you look at Metro, EirGrid, all of these clients, that's what we've done, and we've done very well in terms of their procurement strategy. That sets that project up for success, or sets the projects up for success. And that's the experience we're bringing with our experience globally of delivering those big major projects.
Well, let's talk a little about the experience globally. So I understand the Turner Townsend team across the UK has actually been involved in co-authoring some of the seminal work around the infrastructure route map that the UK is using. So how do you leverage that? How much crossover is there between the teams? And in terms of, I suppose, helping our current, not just government and policymakers, but those actually with ambitions for large projects that Ireland needs in the coming decades, how can the Turner Townsend team in Ireland help the government and the future government see around corners to avoid the pitfalls? So you referred to lessons learned. How can we ensure that the lessons are learned maybe from other projects so we don't need to learn them ourselves?
The document you referred to, yes, we are co-authors on that. The people that have been involved in the developing of that report, our authors, are also involved in the project setup of the major projects that we've secured here. And those sort of reports, that framework has been used as a framework for the project setups here, in terms of how it's procured, the types of contracts that are used, that, you know, we certainly as a country haven't been used to implementing on the projects here to date. So we've brought those expertise in for various workshops, for the project setup, and the project strategy sessions that gives our clients the confidence, with the experience we have, that we're going in the right direction on those projects.
Obviously, Turner Townsend in Ireland is quite publicly working with the state on some of the largest and most complex projects. In terms of your private sector clients, how are they communicating with you in terms of the challenges they're finding in delivering projects? So, for example, because we're only days away from Budget 2025, we've had the usual slew of pre-budget submissions from all of the industry bodies, and there are some definite recurring themes. Planning continues to be an issue. Obviously, we have our planning and development bill sitting, waiting in the wings, with positive announcements coming every few days from Custom House indeed. Yeah. But the reality is planning is indeed a problem, but so too did procurement come up as challenges. And then there are massive challenges across labour, construction skills and critical skills. And indeed, are we making working across the built environment, whether it's in residential, whether it's across commercial, or indeed infrastructure, or indeed our renewables sector, are we making working in the built environment attractive for the next generation?
I think it's, the question is, are we, is debatable. I think it is a very attractive industry to be in as a career. My background was quantity surveying. I moved into project management over a decade ago. I do think it is attractive. The challenge we have, you've touched on a number of points. Planning, the planning bill is working its way through. It's a huge document. It's over 700 pages. When it'll get to legislation stage remains to be seen. Will it be pre-election or post-election? But that needs fundamental implementation. Obviously, changes in the process that's there. There's other factors there that are making a challenge for us as a company and as an industry to attract those critical skills. But it's almost a catch-22 situation. We're talking about infrastructure, investment in infrastructure, housing, water, power. Without those, we can't create the housing that we need to house the staff, the resources that we need to work within our industry. I think there was a report that was in the papers this morning on the back of the CF conference yesterday, where they're talking about the numbers of housing is dropping because the mixed use sort of plans that have been granted, which include apartments, which are slowing down the number of houses being built. So that's seen as going backwards in terms of numbers. But fundamentally, it is attractive industry, but we need to get some of the fundamentals right. Let's get our planning bill through and into legislation, make those changes. Funding is another factor that's there. We spoke about in previous conversations. The economy has changed. COVID has changed the environment that's out there. We used to have a very big, and we still do, occupier or fit out division here within our business, within real estate. I think we've probably had one of our best years last year and this year in fit out, but we do see the decline. There's the lack of investment. There's the lack of appetite for people to go ahead with new offices. We've seen signals in the media about return to office, whether that is realised, the likes of Amazon and co, whether they're going to do that. We're an industry, unless we get people back in working, if we get the offices back being built, commercial offices, the investment in those appetites, they all feed into where we're going as an industry.
Well, today I feel very fortunate that in previous months and indeed longer, I get to speak to real estate experts around the future of work, office fit out, what do team members want now, and we're always talking about it almost as the providers, the suppliers, and indeed you do fit into that category, obviously leading Turner Townsend in Ireland, but you also more personally and directly now feed into it because you've had to undergo the process of finding a new HQ, fitting out a new HQ, fitting out. I can only imagine that from the time you started looking and selected this office, your team has experienced huge growth. So how do you provide for that? And let's take it maybe away from the market and more to the experience of what your team were telling you. What did they want? Do they want to be in an office? Do they want to work remotely?
It's a mixture. Our growth over the last number of years, it's down to people who come into the office or want to come into the office. Some of the commissions that we've secured with the infrastructure clients, we work on client sites. That's a big requirement of those roles. So it's a mixture. One of the things that we were conscious in talking to our staff and the feedback from staff is having an office that was fit for purpose, that gave them different spaces, different abilities to plan their day, because their day varied from first thing in the morning, perhaps lunchtime, and facilities for breakout lunch, sandwich, the social aspect. And their afternoon could be different. They could have an afternoon where they're on Teams calls. So very much when we were designing the office, once we found or chose our office, was to build in all those different facilities here, which I think we've got right. Doesn't mean we won't tweak things as we get feedback from staff over the next couple of years, but it's about making the office a destination for our staff. And when we do encourage them to come back in and see and experience the camaraderie, the social or functions that we run in the office, they see the benefits of being here. It's the mentoring, it's the learning by osmosis. That's the difference that we're finding now since we've moved in here and have the bigger space that we can accommodate our teams.
Well, I've really enjoyed coming through and bringing some of the iPropertyRadio team in here today. It's a really impressive office. That's the kind of as a starting point.
Thank you.
I would expect nothing less, but it's actually great to see a busy, thriving office, and we love the buzz of an office. We have a studio that we can record in. We love when we get out into the wild. We love when people let us into their offices, because as anybody can see over my shoulder, there's a whole hive of activity happening, and I think it's very poignant that it's all happening over my shoulder, and in front of me I'm looking across at Custom House. So it feels like you're right in the heart of it. People are getting together, they're solving problems, they're hopefully inspired and conspiring for innovations in the future, what they can do, what can happen. But where are you finding the team to fill these roles? Because genuinely, I think that your growth journey has been phenomenal, but it's one that actually many companies across the construction industry are, securing contracts, whether it's for work in Ireland or otherwise, and they're really struggling to get the team they need, the skills they need. We know that government has identified a gap between maybe some of the offering, the training and that's being offered in Ireland and through our current programmes. So let's start there, just because the projects you're working on, let's start with maybe the level of education and training that's available in Ireland. Are you identifying any gaps, or can you find the training you need for your staff across the programmes that are available in Ireland right now, or are you having to look outside of Ireland?
We're doing both. I don't think there is the requisite number of people within Ireland alone. I don't think that we're getting enough people coming through colleges. It is, as we spoke earlier, it is an attractive industry. I'm nearly 30 years in the industry, but we still are looking abroad. We're looking at the critical skills, and that is a challenge for ourselves, no doubt for some of our competitors or peers out there in the industry, of how we get those resources. One thing we are finding, we have a very good recruitment team that works locally here in Ireland and works closely with our European colleagues as well. We are doing okay in terms of getting numbers of people in. What I find is when we do get people to interview and we can actually have a conversation, whether our hiring managers, the team leads out there will have those conversations. When you get people and they can understand our culture, they understand how we work, the opportunities that they have for progression, the training that we put in place for them, the L&D, they're all attractive propositions for staff that join us. We do unfortunately lose people. They progress in their careers, they have opportunities, they move on, but largely we have very little people that do leave us, because we are very progressive. We have a great culture here, but yes, we do need more people. We're going to continue to grow. Our ambition is there to continue to grow, win more big major projects, service the clients we have, and we are looking abroad. Some of the pain points is probably the critical skills and the ability to get people through the immigration process and getting CSEPs, the Stamp 1Gs. They're the kind of pain points that we are suffering, getting those, and it's accessing the quickness or speed of getting those processed and get people into the country.
Can you just maybe dig a little deeper in terms of the critical skills? And the reason I ask this is, I'm conscious that you started your career as a quantity surveyor. So the training that you received then, and while you have evolved more on project management, and I suppose we've seen cost management and project controls really evolve in recent years, is the training at an educational level keeping pace with the demands in the workplace?
The critical skills we want, you've mentioned two of them. So it's project controls, it's cost management, health and safety, it's project management, to name four of them. Are they keeping abreast? I don't think so. I don't think it's not me being critical of the college. That's far from what I'm saying. So I just don't think we've enough courses there. You know, I'm involved in the Society of Chartered Surveyors. They do fantastic work in that area. I'm involved in the project management committee. But we're just seeing, you know, what we need to do as an industry, what we need to do as a company ourselves, which we are involved in, is get involved in better graduate programs and probably education earlier in that process, getting into the schools and educating them so they see it as an attractive career. I think the colleges will only respond to the demand that they have there. Mm-hmm. That's business sense for themselves in terms of if there isn't a demand, they won't put on the courses. So we need to get in earlier, and that's something that's upon us as a business of our scale now, that we need to go in and do more and more of that. And that's something that we're working on at the moment to get into the schools, you know, transition year, 5th year before some of the students, but male and female, and we have a huge push in that in terms of our gender balance and attract more females into the industry, is to educate them, give them the variety of opportunities that are in a business like ourselves or the wider construction industry.
When you're attracting a team, you know, you've talked about the culture. We know that's important. The conditions, obviously housing is something that has been well documented for people to be able to live comfortably and have an enjoyable work-life balance, so they actually can afford to live and work in their area. So that's, you know, a certain amount of that is within your control. But when you're attracting team, and not just at junior levels, but at all levels, and particularly at senior levels, how significant is it, the projects these people are going to be working on? Do people move more for companies, or is it for projects?
I think it's a bit of both. The projects we're involved in, I've mentioned some of them earlier. You know, in terms of some of the procurement people that we're recruiting for at the moment, some of the project management people that we're looking for, these are going to be some of the biggest projects they'll probably work on in their career. Certainly in Ireland, they'll be the biggest that we'll have heard of in history. You know, we're talking about, you know, the metro, we're talking about capital investment programs with DAA, Ishka Airgrid on the sort of the infrastructure and energy and natural resources. There are projects of scale that they weren't, you know, if I look back 30 years when I started my career, they weren't there. We're looking at some hospital projects, residential, commercial offices. These are big, complex projects. They're phenomenal projects in that sense that they can take those skills in years to come and probably export those skills depending where they stand in their careers. You know, they can bring them and do Sydney metros. They can work in metros elsewhere around the globe. These are usually transferable skills, but skills we need here, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment, and bring those skills into the country.
Yeah,
and hire those people.
Well, let's talk about the pipeline. I suppose obviously I'm talking to you in the context of Turner Townsend in Ireland, but I'm also very aware that actually there's other companies that would be, you know, perhaps in similar positions and struggling to get the skill sets they need. But in terms of, I suppose, shoring up the pipeline, shoring up the demand, I mentioned there that the growth within Turner Townsend in Ireland has been phenomenal, travelling over a period of 3 years, and we know that there's a huge jobs announcement coming out this week that the finance minister will be making. So congratulations to you and the rest of the team. How sustainable, how do you see that you'll be able to keep this momentum in terms of the project's pipeline? Do you see, how far ahead are you looking at in terms of your pipeline?
Well, probably over the next 3 years. That's what we're strategizing at the moment. We spoke previously about our Vision 25. At the moment, we're looking 3 years ahead with a lot of the sort of the global sort of uncertainty out there, looking at the next 3 years. And we've huge certainty in terms of projects that are secured and the pipeline that we see out there. You know, we see the future probably for the next number of years. Health is a big area of spend from government, residential, huge underinvestment there. So we're confident that there is that work and there's the ability to continue to grow in line with our ambition.
How confident are you that Budget 2025 is going to not just support the projects that are in the pipeline now or are being muted really now, but how confident are you that actually Budget 2025, knowing that we're in an interesting stage of the political cycle, how confident are you that it has multi-party support, that it can withstand any election result that we might see in the next number of months?
We don't know who's going to be in government whenever the election is called, whether it's pre-Christmas, post-Christmas. You would hope. Ireland's in a unique place. We've never had this surplus before. Obviously, we touch on, you know, the Apple billions that are there. So I think the present government is in a very unique place in terms of where they invest wisely now in terms of the investment today, which will be in some sense for the Ireland of tomorrow. You know, they need to invest wisely in, we've mentioned earlier, water, power. There's two main areas, but housing obviously is one that feeds. They need power and water to be able to invest in the housing. They all go together. I think our government is in a great position. I do think there is support. There's always going to be the political tensions that are there, commentary that's coming out, but I do think we are uniquely placed. I think regardless of what government we have next year, the money is there, the taxation is there that allows a good solid foundation over the next number of years of investment, and I'd hope it would continue. So I don't want to prompt what the Minister might be coming out with at his speech tomorrow or equally on budget day, but there has been soundings in the media already of the investment, you know, 3 billion for Uisce Éireann, talk of another $1 billion plus for LDA, and obviously in power or grid there's going to be significant investment. So I do think they will withstand whatever government might be there because of the tax base that we presently have.
Yeah, and that seems to be the popular thinking. So in terms of, because we know that this is somewhat of a windfall, that it's not recurring, how can we ensure that the state not just spends on capital projects that are genuinely needed, but achieves value for money? Because that has been such a hot button topic, and it hasn't become as political as it might have been, but it is quite a inflammatory conversation that's happening across the media at the moment, and I would absolutely accept that part of that maybe is a lack of informed reporting around some key construction projects, which is certainly something that we'd like to see addressed. But in terms of value for money, I do think that's a very fair conversation to have when we're talking about such huge generational infrastructure projects. How can we not just ensure value for money, but almost build in the systems that value for money becomes not just best practice, but the norm going forward?
I think project controls is the project setup in terms of the project initiation. It's how you procure your projects is the key to how we drive value for money moving forward. There's projects that are out there that we could touch on if we choose to. We'll avoid them today. You know, were they set up correctly? Most likely not. And that's probably the key to possibly some major project failures. We don't have a good track record in this country of projects running to budget, to programme. But you know, with the big projects that we now have in front of us as a country, it is key that we do get that control. And it goes back to what I said, it's project setup, the strategy being right, procurement being correct, and obviously then the project controls and the reporting.
Are project overruns and running over budget, is that inevitable?
A hard one to answer.
I'm putting you in a very difficult position, because obviously Turner Townsend doesn't carry the weight of Ireland's capital projects on its shoulders, but you know, there has become a feeling that certainly there's an element of almost inevitability about project runs. And I mean, is that an inevitability? Is it something that can be corrected with really good, robust procurement? Or is it something actually that maybe there needs to be better understanding, particularly across media reporting, on issues such as change orders?
You touched on sort of the media reporting. Do people want good news? Do they want bad news? What sells headlines or print media? What's the best way to put it? Project overruns, no, they're not inevitable. It's how they're reported. It's what people want to hear. Mm-hmm. So when we do our reporting, you know, we would set the budgets, we set up the project for success, but also you'd built into that project reporting how we'd predict inflation. Over the last number of years, it's been very hard for anyone in our industry to predict. We've had COVID, so that's been a huge anomaly. The supply chain issues that we've had there. We've had huge runaway inflation as an industry, and as a country and globally as well. They're very hard things to predict or build into budgets, and they're exceptional things. But in terms of projects, we can build in the normal predicted inflation, and that's what we do.
Yeah, you've touched on something there very important, and that is we've had a really unprecedented few years in terms of Irish and global events. In terms of forward-looking for the project delivery, what are the main challenges you see that are likely to impact projects that are either in planning or just getting off the ground now?
Probably the biggest one is sort of multi-annual budgets and government setting aside the finance for them, because we work to various project milestones or reporting stage gates, and it's the delays in actually getting those approvals. They're there for reasons, checks at those milestones to make sure things are on programme, on budget. But if government is not allocating those multi-annual budgets, and I know that's a fact, there's that uncertainty as to whether projects will continue.
Philip, I'm very conscious that we're running short on time because you have a particularly busy few days, because you've mentioned some of it, but of course you are still welcoming team members into the new office. You do indeed have a special guest coming to open the office within the next kind of 36 hours. So it's a really busy time for Turner Townsend, but projects still need to keep going.
They do.
So tell me, what's just in terms of the celebrations that are going to be happening, and also you touched on team culture. So for the team, have most of your team been into the office at this stage?
I think nearly everyone's been in at this stage. What we did though, we do have an event tomorrow, so we have a client event tomorrow just to celebrate the new office opening. But I actually marked it a number of weeks ago. We actually did the staff one first because it's about our staff. So we did that first at a party here. Actually went on till about 12:30 one night, particularly Thursday. I think they had to come first because it's about the team, and that goes back into our culture. We have to put our staff first. We wouldn't have the projects, we wouldn't have the clients without the dedication of our team. So I had to recognise that first and say thank you to them. So yes, we have, as you've said earlier, Minister Chambers tomorrow. So it looks like a very good day tomorrow. Busy day. With our event kicking off tomorrow evening, so
it does, and I don't want to preempt any announcements that the Finance Minister, of course, will be making, but I suppose for people listening in who might be maybe looking for their next opportunity to advance their career, might there be a few new opportunities opening up?
There certainly will be. Over the next 12 months, we do anticipate significant growth, certainly in 2025 and beyond.
Philip, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to sit down and
Carol.
chat to you. It was great today to get in to see the new offices at 1GQ. It's an added bonus that we get to look across at Custom House, and I know you've such a busy few days. I really appreciate you setting aside the time today and letting us take over your office.
You're very welcome.
I can say that it's a very welcoming office. We've certainly been made to feel very welcome, so thank you so much, and congratulations on the phenomenal growth, not just in terms of the team and the new office move, while that's very significant, but actually the role that you're playing for some of the most transformative projects that are ongoing in Ireland. So it's certainly a lot to be proud of. So thank you so much for letting us in today. That was Philip Matthews, Managing Director of Turner Townsend in Ireland, and that's all we've time for today. My thanks as always to show producers Katie Tallon and Caoimhe Scully, and thanks to the podcast production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Again, thank you so much to the Turner & Townsend team for letting us disrupt their day. That's all we've time for. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio.